Hi, this is Sociological Lens. I am Dr. Dilsora Fozilova. So in the middle of my lecture in last one, I decided to separate from the fear of the unknown and the 10 lessons for post-pandemic world by Farid Zakaria. So this is the second part of fear of the unknown, but we will be focusing on 10 lessons for post-pandemic world by Farid Zakaria, a work that explores how the COVID-19 pandemic reshaped our world while also revealing fundamental truth about human society, resilience, and our underlying anxieties. At its core, this book tackles an age old theme, the fear of the unknown. In the past few years, we all experienced a wave of uncertainty about health, jobs, social life, and the global order itself. The crisis which unfolded in real time felt like the consistent reminder of just how much is truly beyond our control. Zacharias 10 lessons speaks directly to the experience, offering insights into what the pandemic has taught us and how we might navigate future crises with a better understanding of both the practical and psychological challenges we face. One of the most striking aspects of the pandemic was the pervasive fear it unleashed. This wasn't just the fear of the virus, it wasn't the fear of the virus itself, but the fear of an unknown, unpredictable future, the sense that the rules of modern life could no longer shield us from catastrophe. And it was this fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of how the virus would spread, how long it will last, how much life would change, and that left us with a lasting impact on society. As we explore Zacharias 10 lessons, we will consider how our response to pandemic was driven not only by practical concern, but by this deeply rooted fear of the unknown. Zachariah encourages us to look at this fear not as something to suppress or ignore, but as starting point to prepare ourselves better for future uncertainties. Through his lessons, he challenges us to rethink the foundations of our social, political, and economic structures to become more resilient, adaptive, and most importantly, more comfortable with the uncertainties that will inevitably arise from different parts of our social life. By examining Zachariah's insights, let's reflect on how we as individuals and as society can grow from this experience. How do we move forward, learning not only to survive the unknown, but to meet it with courage and preparedness or preparation? Let's delve into the lessons. I'll share my PowerPoint, and so we can discover how they can guide us to in facing the unknowns yet to come. So the COVID-19 pandemic, which began in late 2019, had far-reaching effects across social, economic, political, and health domains globally. So in our first video, we talked about fear of the unknown and explored some of the theoretical aspects of it. And in this part of the class, we will be talking about 10 lessons for post-pandemic world by Zakaria. So Zakaria's book is about, like as its name suggests, it's about 10 lessons from post-pandemic world. It talks about all different kinds of implications of pandemic. So the pandemic started with some social implications like isolation and mental health and work and education shift. Also, the people were doing all kinds of um, uh, unexpected kind of acts like panic buying, and that there was a toilet paper phenomena, if you remember. All different kinds of stuff happened in a very short time. Lockdowns and social distancing essential for controlling virus spread. Um, that led to a widespread isolation. This caused a surge in mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, and loneliness. Vulnerable groups such as elderly and people with disabilities often felt the impacts more intensely. Of course, in this slide, you can see that coronavirus was first reported from Wuhan, China, in December 31st, 2019. In March, we start to see the different kinds of signs of that. And March 11, 2020, World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as pandemic. And then the thing starts to rapidly change. Remote work and online education became the norm, disrupting traditional practices and exposing digital divides. People without access to reliable internet or technology, particularly in underserved um, under underserved communities, face disadvantages in work and education. So many countries saw a rise in domestic violence as lockdowns trapped victims with abusers and limited access to support resources. And it was very scary, actually. The economic implications were also very immense. Businesses, especially in sectors like hospitality, travel, and retail, faced closures and significant downturns. This led to mass layoffs, increased unemployment, and economic insecurity for millions. And also, COVID 19 affected global supply chains, from factory shutdowns and transportation delays, shortages in essential items, from medical supplies to consumer goods, led to inflation and price increases. Also, there was many governments introduced stimulus packages to support businesses and individuals. While essential for economic stability, these packages increased national debt and prompted debates about long-term economic impacts. Political implications were also huge. People The governments implemented varying degrees of restrictions, from lockdowns to mask mandates. These measures sometimes sparked debates on individual freedoms versus collective safety, with political ramifications for leaders based on their COVID-19 strategies. Misinformation about the virus and vaccines spread widely on social media, creating polarized attitudes and challenging public health efforts. Probably many of you observed what was happening in the USA. The politicization of health measures intensified divisions within and between countries. The pandemic highlighted interdependencies and vulnerabilities in global health systems. While some countries collaborated on vaccine development and distribution, others prioritized national interests, leading to vaccine nationalism. There were um, the health implications, which took strain on healthcare systems. Hospitals worldwide faced overwhelming demands, particularly during surges. This strain led to resource shortages such as ICU beds and ventilation, PPE, and caused burnout among healthcare workers. COVID-19 led to not only immediate but also lasting health issues. Long COVID condition with lingering symptoms affected millions, and the redirection of resources to COVID could delay treatment for other illnesses. So there was different kinds of vaccination strategies in different parts of the world. The rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines was scientific milestone. However, unequal access to vaccines worldwide underscored health disparities, with poorer countries facing delayed in receiving doses. In summary, COVID-19 pandemic exposed and amplified existing inequalities, reshaped political landscapes, and prompted reconsideration of healthcare and economic policies. Its effect will continue to influence society, economies, and international relations for many, many years to come, I believe. And now we're going to explore Zakaria's 10 Lessons for Pandemic. So who is Farid Zakaria? He is an Indian American journalist, political analyst, and author. He was born in Bombay, India, in a Muslim family. Zakaria studied at the Yale University and got his PhD at the Harvard University. So he's a well-educated fellow. He was one of the students of Samuel Huntington, which I read a few publishings of Huntington. So let's dig into it. So the 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World is Farid Zakaria's recent book, published in 2020. Before that, Zakaria published The Future of Freedom, 2003, The Post-American World, 2008, In Defense of a Liberal Education, 2015. Seems you can see that he paid a lot of attention to education, future of education, and the post-American world. So the first lesson, so Zakaria has 10 lessons in this book. So first lesson is called Buckle Up. In lesson 1 of the 10 lessons for post-pandemic world, Farid Zakaria explores the importance of preparing for and adapting to global crisis. He discusses how the COVID-19 pandemic revealed vulnerabilities in global systems, from healthcare and economic frameworks to political structures. Zakaria argues that the pandemic wasn't an isolation event, but rather a symptom of globalized world where challenges can spread rapidly across borders. He underscores that while pandemics are inevitable, their devastating effects can be mitigated with better planning, early detection, and commitment to scientific knowledge. Zakaria also highlights the need for resilience over mere efficiency. While efficiency-focused systems like just-in-time supply chains were popular, they left little room for error or unexpected disruption. Resilient systems, however, can better withstand shocks because they prioritize flexibility and readiness over streamlining costs. By adopting this mindset, Zakaria argues that nations and societies can be better equipped for future crises. Ultimately, Zakaria's first lesson is about recognizing the necessity of building robust, adaptable systems. He emphasizes that the next global crisis could come from other sources such as climate change or cyber threats, making it critical to buckle up and prioritize resilience across all aspects of societies. He talks about the history of this Spanish flu, SARS, MARS, AIDS, and swine flus, and showing that this is not one time thing. It's just coming and going all the time. So we need to be prepared for the next disasters or next this kind of events. So the second lesson of the lessons, 10 lessons for the post-pandemic world, titled What Matters is Not the Quantity, but the Quality. Farid Zakaria argues that the true strength of a country is not determined by its size, wealth, or population, but by the quality of its institutions, infrastructure, and social trust. Using the pandemic as a lens, he observes that countries with smaller populations or fewer resources managed the crisis more effectively if they had robust healthcare system, competent leadership, and well-functioning institutions. He talks about all this kind of um, how it felt like a joke in the USA. Zakaria contrasts countries that were prepared and adaptable with those that struggled despite their wealth and power, like United States. He notes that while the United States had the resources to address COVID-19, issues in governance, polarization, and lack of coordination hindered its response. On the other hand, countries like Germany, South Korea, or New Zealand, which prioritize quality in governance, healthcare, and civic responsibility, were able to control the virus more effectively. The lessons, this chapter concludes that the idea that in a crisis, the quality of governance, infrastructure, and trust between citizens and governments play a far greater role than sheer economic or military power. Zakaria encourages societies to invest in quality institutions that foster resilience and public trust, which can make a crucial difference when responding to global challenges. And the next one, the lesson 3, um, he titled it We Are All Global Citizens, Markets Are Not Enough. Farid Zakaria emphasizes the interconnectedness of the modern world and necessity of global cooperation in addressing issues like pandemic, climate change, and economic instability. He argues that COVID-19 pandemic underscored the reality that problems transcending national borders require collaborative solutions. Zakaria highlights how viruses, climate change, and economic crisis know no borders, affecting people globally regardless of their nationality. He stresses that the truly effective response to these challenges cannot rely solely on individual nations as acting in isolation. Instead, it necessitates that makes it necessary a collective effort that recognizes our shared humanity and the interdependence of nations. He also discusses the importance of international institutions and agreements in facilitating cooperation, sharing resources, and coordinating responses to global challenges. He critiques nationalism and isolationism, arguing that they can lead to inadequate responses and exacerbate global problems. The lesson 3, concludes with call for a renewed commitment to multilateralism and strengthening global governance structures. Zakaria posits that embarrassing getting that concept of global citizenship, acknowledging our responsibilities to one another as members of global community is essential for building a resilient and sustainable future. The next one, the lesson 4, talks about what the people should listen to experts and experts to people. That this one talks about how Trump was talking about how he feels about it, and he hates experts and books. He was suggesting to use cleaning stuff for curing COVID. All successful governments declared the reason for success, and those, one of the things they told us was that use of expert knowledge and reasoning, right? The predicting future may be possible if we listen to experts, not following the footsteps of the president of the USA at the time, who got COVID-19 himself. So the next lesson is the life is digital. It's about the technology. Zakaria talks about, discusses the profound impact that technology has on society, especially in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. He argues that while technology can be a powerful tool for addressing global challenges, it also brings significant risks and ethical considerations that must be navigated carefully. Zakaria highlights how technology played a crucial role in combating the pandemic, from facilitating remote work and online education to enabling rapid vaccine development and distribution through innovations like mRNA technology. He emphasized that the ability to adapt technological advancements has been a key factor in how different countries responded to the crisis. However, he also warns about the potential downsides of technology, including privacy concerns, misinformation, and the digital divide that can exacerbate inequalities. That pandemic revealed how success or access to technology varied widely within disadvantaged communities, often lacking the resources needed to benefit fully from digital solutions. This lesson emphasizes the need for a balanced approach to technology where its benefits are maximized while addressing its pitfalls. Zakaria advocates for ethical consideration in technological development and deployment, encouraging societies to focus on equitable access and responsible use of technology to create more inclusive future. In the lesson 5, he talks about the Aristotle was right. We are social animals. He's talking about social life. He's talking about examining the significant transformations in the labor market prompted by COVID-19 pandemic. He discusses how the crisis accelerated the existing trends in the workforce, particularly the rise of remote work and the increasing importance of technology in various industries. He talked about the many organizations and employees experienced a sudden shift to remote work during the pandemic, which revealed both the potential benefits and challenges of this model. For many workers, remote work offered greater flexibility and better work-life balance, while for others, it exasperated feelings of isolation and blurred the lines between work and personal life. The lessons also highlight the implications of automation and artificial intelligence on jobs. Zakaria points out the pandemic hastening the adoption of technologies that can replace human labor, raising concerns about job security and the need for reskilling and upskilling workers. He emphasized that future of work will require adaptability as the nature of jobs continue to evolve. Zakaria argues that for the importance of investing in education and training programs to equip workers with the skills necessary for changing job markets. He calls for policies that support workforce transition, ensuring that individuals can adapt to new roles and industries. So, lesson 5 underscores that the pandemic has fundamentally altered the landscape of work, accelerating trends that were already underway. Zakaria emphasized that need for proactive approach to navigating these changes, focusing on fostering resilience or resilient workforce that can thrive in post-pandemic economy. So then he also talks about the politics of knowledge and inequality will get worse. He talks about the critical role of expertise, scientific understanding, and factual information in shaping policy responses during the COVID-19. He argues that the pandemic highlighted both the value of knowledge and decision making and the dangers of misinformation and political polarization. He emphasized that effective responses to public health crises rely heavily on credible information. I think I brought over here some of them. Countries that successfully managed the pandemic tended to listen to public health experts and acted based on evidence and data. And he also points out that the pandemic exposes vulnerabilities in how knowledge is perceived and utilized in politics. Misinformation and conspiracy conspiracy theories proliferated during the crisis, fueled by social media and general mistrust of institutions. This environment made it challenging for leaders to communicate effectively and the public to discern credible information from falsehood. Zakaria also advocates for straightening the relationship between politics and knowledge, stressing the importance of fostering trust in scientific institutions and experts. He argues that societies need to promote critical thinking and media literacy to combat misinformation and exploring citizens to make informed decisions about everything happening in their lives. So also he talks about that the rise of nationalism. Zakaria discusses the resurgence of national sentiments and how they were both challenged and intensified by the COVID-19 pandemic. He examines how the crisis exposes vulnerabilities in global cooperation and highlighted the tension between global independence and national interests. Zakaria notes that pandemic prompted many countries to prioritize their own citizens or international collaboration, leading to rise in nationalist policies. Um, and also the for the examples were given that countries implemented export restrictions on medical supplies and vaccines focused on domestic needs and sovereignty. While this instinct to protect national interests is understandable in times of crisis, Zakaria warns that it can lead to fragmentation and weaken global systems that rely on cooperation. He also addresses how the pandemic exacerbated existing inequalities both within and between nations. Economic hardships and public health disparities fueled frustration and resentment, making populist and nationalist narratives more appealing. And he suggests that this could undermine international institutions and complicate collective responses to future global challenges such as climate change and pandemics. However, he argues that nationalism, while powerful, is not a sustainable solution to global issues. He emphasized that the need for countries to find balance between legitimate national interests and the necessity of working together to tackle problems that transcend borders. So he talks about inequality quite a bit, and he says that the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated existing social and economic inequalities across the globe. He argues that while the virus itself affected individuals indiscriminately, the outcomes were heavily influenced by pre-existing disparities in health, the wealth, health, access to healthcare, and social resources. Zakaria highlights that marginalized communities, including low-income population, low-income populations, racial minorities, and those without stable employment, faced disproportionately severe impacts from the pandemic. These groups often had less access to quality healthcare, were more likely to work in jobs that could not be done remotely, and experienced greater financial instability. As a result, they suffered higher infection rates, worse health outcomes, and more significant economic hardships compared to their more privileged counterparts. This lesson also emphasized that pandemic revealed and intensified structural inequalities within societies. Zakaria discusses how the crisis prompted discussions about systemic issues such as inequalities, inadequate healthcare system, education disparities, and labor market inequalities. These discussions highlighted the need for comprehensive policy reforms aimed at addressing root causes of inequality. He advocates for creating more equitable systems that prioritize social safety, um, also access to healthcare and educational opportunities for all citizens. He argues that addressing inequality is not only a moral imperative, but also essential for building a resilient society capable of withstanding future crises. Um, he this lesson underscores that the COVID-19 pandemic served as a magnifying glass for existing inequalities, prompting a call for action for policymakers and societies to implement changes that promote equality, equity, and justice. in the post-pandemic world. He stresses that addressing these disparities is vital for fostering a healthier and more stable future. He talks in one of his the lessons is about the importance of community. I think I just overview with that one. This one, the Aristotle's, he starts with Aristotle here. Um, he discusses the vital role that strong communities play in fostering resilience during crises like COVID-19 pandemic. He emphasized that pandemic highlighted how social connections and community bonds can significantly influence individual and collective well-being. He points out that communities with strong social ties, trust, and cooperation were better equipped to navigate the challenges posed by pandemic. In such communities, residents often rallied together to support each other, share resources, and ensure the well-being of vulnerable members. This collective action was crucial in areas such as distribution of food, providing childcare, and assisting with healthcare access. Conversely, he noted that in communities where social cohesion was weaker, the impacts of pandemic were more pronounced. Lack of trust and cooperation can lead to fragmentation and hinder effective responses to public health crisis. Zakaria argues that pandemic underscores the necessity of investing in social capital and community building efforts, as these elements are essential for resilience and recovery. Additionally, Zakaria highlights the role of local organizations, volunteer groups, and grassroots movements in addressing immediate need during the pandemic. He advocates for policies that strengthen community infrastructure and support local initiatives, which can enhance social cohesion and improve overall society's resilience. In lesson 10, he talks about sometimes the greatest realists are idealists. That's what he calls it. And this is the kind of the need for leadership. Farid Zakaria discusses the critical importance of effective leadership in navigating crisis and shaping a resilient post-pandemic world. He emphasizes that strong leadership is essential for guiding societies through uncertainty, making informed decisions, and fostering public trust. Zakaria argues that the pandemic world, in the post-pandemic world, exposed varying qualities of leadership across the globe. Some leaders rose to occasion, demonstrating transparency, decisiveness, and the commitment to science, which helped their nations respond effectively to the crisis. In contrast, others that kind of like exhibited poor leadership, the characterized by misinformation, indecisiveness, and lack of accountability, leading to detrimental outcomes for their citizens. The lesson highlights several key attributes of effective leadership, including the ability to communicate clearly, build consensus, and inspire collective action. He underscores the need for leaders to prioritize a common good over political gain, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose among citizens. In summary, Zakaria emphasized that effective leadership is crucial for navigating future challenges and fostering a resilient society. He calls for a commitment to cultivating and supporting leaders who prioritize transparency, inclusiveness, and well being of their um, people. He argues that investing in strong leadership is essential for building a better future in the post pandemic world, ensuring that societies are equipped to address both immediate crises and long term challenges. And at the end, he talks about the stories of Arabs attacking the Ottoman Empire. And overnight, we agreed to, isolate, to go online, um, doing telemedicine, and that kind of stuff because of this pandemic. They people in this kind of situations can choose in what direction they want to push themselves, push inwards, look inwards, or outwards. Like he suggests that investing in the future is very, very important. Technology is advancing fast, and humans can lose control over their what they are doing. So this 10 lessons from post-pandemic world is very great read to understand what happened during the pandemic and how we dealt with this the new thing that for us this was just kind of one of the biggest pandemics happened in last so many decades. So this was a great book to understand fear from unknown, how people respond to this fear, and how we can manage these fears. So this is our another small lecture. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you in our next classes.